Very good morning, students, and welcome for the digital classroom of science. Students, we had finished lesson number 10, and I am pretty sure that you had completed the workbook exercise. Today we are going to start the new lesson number 11, Human Body and Organ System, in which we are going to study about the internal organs and organ systems of our body. It's quite an interesting lesson. Is organ system. Now, what is an organ system? As you can see in the pictures, there are certain organ systems shown. The very first picture is the organ system, that is the circulatory system. In the second one, you can see the kidneys, urinary bladder, so it is the excretory system. Then you can see the skeleton, so that is the skeletal system. The fourth one, where you can see the different nerves, brain, spinal cord, that is the nervous system. And the last one, which we had already studied in 7th standard, that is the digestive system. How the food is eaten and then it is converted into simple soluble substances so that it can be absorbed in our body. So all these are called as the organ systems. Now, as you know that in our body, there are different organs which are working very smoothly to carry out the different life processes, right? Like in the first one, circulation of blood takes place. Second one, excretion takes place. Third one, the skeleton is formed. Fourth one, the nerves are found, and in the fifth one, the digestive system is there, where the digestion of food takes place. So different organs, when they work together, when they are work in a group to carry out the life processes, and these life processes, they take place in various steps. So when these organs, group of organs, number of organs, they work together, they work smoothly to carry out a specific function, it is called as the organ system. So first one is circulatory system, which brings about the circulation of blood, that is, it supplies blood, oxygen to the different parts of the body, and in turn the carbon dioxide is excreted outside the body. Second one is excretion, where the nitrogenous waste products are separated and they are excreted outside in the form of urine. Third one is the skeleton system, where how the skeleton of our body is formed. Next one is nervous system, where all the nerves, they reach to the each and every part of our body. And the last one is the digestive system, that is whatever food is eaten, that is converted into simple soluble substances so that it can be absorbed inside our body. So these all are the organ systems. It is group of organs working together to perform a specific function is called as organ system. Now first we are going to start with respiration. Now students, can you tell me what is required to carry on the life processes in our body? It is the energy, right? We need energy to operate all the life processes inside our body. And this energy is produced in each and every cell of our body. Now, cells, they need the nutrients and oxygen for this purpose, right? So this supply of nutrients and oxygen takes place with the help of the respiratory and circulatory system. Now first we are going to start with the process of respiration. Okay. Now respiration is divided into many steps. We will start with the first step, that is external respiration. Now this external respiration itself is divided into two steps. First is inspiration or inhalation, and second is expiration or exhalation. Now what is inspiration or inhalation? Inhalation means taking inside the body. What? We take in air. And from where we take in air? We take in through the nose or through the nostrils. There are two nostrils, and thus the air is taken in through the nose, and then it is sent in the lungs through the windpipe or the trachea, right? So air is inhaled through the nose, and via trachea or the windpipe it reaches the lungs. This whole process is called as inspiration or inhalation. Now the air has reached inside the lungs. Now this air carries the oxygen. So this oxygen is absorbed inside the blood, right? Now blood takes this oxygen to the different parts of the body and in turn brings out carbon dioxide from the different parts of the body in the lungs, right? So this air which carries carbon dioxide is given out of the body, is exhaled out of the body through the process of exhalation or expiration, right? Now both these processes, inspiration and expiration, it takes place with the help of the lungs, and it is together called as external respiration. Okay. Now the second step is internal respiration, right? Now this internal respiration takes place between the cells and the tissues. Now the exchange of gases between the cells and the tissue is called as internal respiration. That is, oxygen from the blood, it moves into the tissues, and then in turn carbon dioxide from the tissue is given out in the blood. So in short, the exchange of gases between the cells and the tissue is called as the internal respiration, and it is the second step in respiration. Now let's move on to the most important third step of respiration, that is called as cellular respiration. Now as the name itself explains, cellular, that means inside the cell. So this cellular respiration takes place inside the cells. Now the nutrients which are there in the body, they are burned in presence of oxygen. It is also called as combustion. So this combustion process takes place inside the cell. So the dissolved nutrients like glucose, it combines with oxygen, or it reacts with the oxygen and gets oxidized, and it forms carbon dioxide, it forms water, and it forms the energy in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Students, if you remember, in 7th standard we had studied the different cell organelles, in which we had studied about mitochondria. And I hope you remember that mitochondria is also called as powerhouse of the cell, right? Because in this mitochondria, the production of energy in the form of ATP takes place. So, C6H12O6, this is glucose, right? It gets oxidized in presence of oxygen and it forms carbon dioxide, which is given out in the process of exhalation, right? It forms water, okay, and then it forms 38 molecules of energy in the form of ATP. That means one molecule of glucose, it produces 38 molecules of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. So this is how the energy is produced, which is used to carry out the different life processes inside our body. Now let's study about the respiratory system. Which organs are there in the respiratory system? What are their structure and functions? So let's start with the respiratory system. The very first respiratory organ is the nose. So the respiration or the respiratory system starts with the nose, begins with the nose. Now the cavity which is present inside the nose is called as the nasal cavity, as you can see inside the picture. Okay. So here we have hair and we have mucus present inside these nasal cavities. So with the help of the hair and the mucus that is present inside the nasal cavity, the air is filtered. Okay. So this is the first organ of respiratory system. Then second respiratory organ is the pharynx. Now pharynx, as you can see in the picture, the pharynx is also called as the windpipe. Now windpipe and food pipe, they both are present in the throat region. The windpipe is present in front of the food pipe. So food pipe is present behind the windpipe. Now at the opening of the windpipe, there is a flap-like structure which opens or closes the entry of food particles into the windpipe, because both the openings are together, windpipe and the food pipe. So when we are eating the food, the windpipe is closed with the help of a flap-like structure so that the food particle does not enter in the windpipe. Otherwise, the windpipe remains open all the time, right? So the air passes through the pharynx into the windpipe. Pharynx is the second respiratory organ. The third respiratory organ is the windpipe. Now this windpipe is also called as trachea. Now this windpipe is swollen at the beginning due to the sound box which is present. Now this windpipe, it bifurcates in the thorax and it forms two bronchioles. Okay. So one trachea, it divides into two because each one enters into the lungs, right? We have two lungs on both the sides, or you can say two lobes of lungs present on both the sides. So the trachea divides into two bronchi which goes inside the lungs. So one branch enters into the right lung and the other branch enters into the left lung. So this is the third organ which is called windpipe. Then the fourth organ, which are very important, they are the lungs. Now, there are two lungs present on either sides of the heart in the thoracic cavity, right? Now, this thoracic cavity is mainly occupied by these two lungs and they cover the maximum part of the heart. Now, each lung has a double covering. This double covering is called as pleura. So, the outermost covering of the lung is called as pleura. The lungs are very elastic. They are like sponge, right? Now, these lungs are made up of very small compartments which are called as alveoli. You can see in the first picture, they are like a bunch of grapes, right? And there is network of capillaries present around each alveolus. And through these capillaries, now these capillaries are very minute, very thin blood vessels in which the exchange of gases takes place. During the explanation of respiration, I had told you that oxygen is absorbed in the blood and carbon dioxide is given out. So this exchange of gases in the lungs takes place through these capillaries. That is the reason why these capillaries are very thin. Now the walls of these alveoli, these small compartments and the capillaries, the very thin and minute blood vessels, they are extremely thin. Why they are thin? So that the exchange of gases can take place very well. Now as the alveoli are present in the lungs in a very large number, so a larger amount of surface, a larger surface is available for gaseous exchange because it is here where the oxygen is absorbed and the carbon dioxide is given out. Now, how the exchange of gases takes place in the lungs, that I will once again explain you. Now, this exchange of gases is continuous when the blood is circulating around these alveoli, which are very small compartments. Now there is a iron compound called as hemoglobin which is present in the RBC or the red blood corpuscles of the blood. Now this hemoglobin, it absorbs the oxygen from the air and then it passes on inside, and similarly or at the same time carbon dioxide and water vapors, they move out of the blood through these alveoli. So it is in these alveoli where the oxygen is absorbed in the blood and carbon dioxide is given out of the blood, and then they are removed from the blood through the process of the exhalation. Okay. Then let's come to the fifth organ of the respiratory system, that is the diaphragm. Now you can see below the two lungs there is a semicircular shaped layer that is called as diaphragm. Now this diaphragm, it is a muscular partition which is present at the base of the thoracic cage. The whole cavity where the lungs are present is called as the thoracic cavity. So there is a small partition at the base that is called as diaphragm, and it is made up of muscles, and this is present between the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity. Now the ribs are there in this thoracic cage. So because of the rising and lowering of the diaphragm, the pressure increases or decreases inside the thoracic cavity. Now, when the ribs return to their original position, the diaphragm rises up. In the picture, you can see the diaphragm is semicircular like. It is risen up, and because of this the pressure on the lungs increases and the air moves out through the nose. So because of this diaphragm moving up and down, the pressure inside the thoracic cavity is decreased or increased, which brings about the breathing. So diaphragm plays a very important role in the process of respiration. So this is all about the respiratory system. So let's just revise that the respiratory system starts from the nasal cavity, then pharynx where the food pipe and windpipe are present. There is a flap-like structure at the entrance of the windpipe. Then the lungs are there. This windpipe, trachea, that is divided into bronchi, and each bronchi enters into left and right side of the lung. Then at the base of the thoracic cavity there is a muscular organ which is called as diaphragm, and the lowering and coming down of this diaphragm brings about the breathing. Okay, and the picture below you can see that the alveoli are there which are having the blood capillaries, and in these blood capillaries the in and out of air takes place. So this is all about human respiratory system. Now the second system we are going to study about is blood circulatory system. Now this system performs the function of transportation of various substances like water, hormones, oxygen, the soluble nutrients and waste materials through the different organs. Now in humans and higher animals, there is a specific independent blood circulatory system, and the blood circulatory system consists of heart, blood vessels and capillaries. And then we will study about all these three in detail. We will study about the structure of heart, function of heart, structure of blood vessels and capillaries, and also the function of blood vessels and capillaries. So let's start with the structure of heart and the function of heart. Now on the left side of the screen, as you can see the picture of heart, it's so colorful with red and blue color. Any idea, students, what this color depicts? Yes, red color depicts the pure blood, whereas the blue color depicts the impure blood. Pure blood carries oxygen, whereas impure blood carries the carbon dioxide. Now this heart is present almost at the center in the thoracic cage, but it is slightly towards the left side, not exactly in the middle, but slightly it is on the left side of the thoracic cavity. It is present behind the ribs. You know, we are having ribs in the thoracic region, and it is present between the two lungs, and slightly it is towards the left side. That is why we always say that our heart is on the left side, but it is not exactly on the left side. It is little towards the left from the center. Now if we fold our hand in the form of a fist, that is exactly the size of our heart. So you can imagine how small this is, but how important this organ is, that is your heart, right? And you know the weight, it is around 360 grams in weight. Now this heart is covered by a double membrane, and this double membrane is called as peritoneal membrane. Now in between the two membranes there is a fluid present, there is a liquid present which protects the heart from the jerks or shocks or the friction. So this Fluid or the liquid between the two peritoneal membrane plays a very important part in the safety of the heart. Now, heart is a muscular organ. It is made up of muscles and it is made up of involuntary cardiac muscles. We had studied about the cardiac muscles, voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. So, heart is made up of specific involuntary muscles which are called as involuntary cardiac muscles. These muscles, they contract and relax with a definite interval, and this is called as beating of heart or heartbeat. Now, if you see, the heart is divided into left and right compartments. There is a vertical partition and there is a horizontal partition also. Now, the left side is also divided into two and right is also divided into two. So, there are total 4 chambers present in our heart. The upper chambers are called as atrium and the lower chambers are called as ventricle. As you can see, the left atrium, below that the left ventricle, right atrium, below the right atrium, the right ventricle is present. So this is all about the structure of the heart. About the blood vessels and capillaries, we will continue in the next lecture, students, because it is almost time up. So today we had studied about the structure of the heart, and in the next lecture we are going to continue with the structure of the blood vessels, capillaries and their functions. Friends, we will continue the lesson in the